Dubai is organizing COP28 later this year. In this backdrop, we have talked with Dr. Bindu Nath Lohani on various issues, especially climate change. Dr. Bindu Lohani served as the Vice President of Asian Development Bank. He has also years of experience in development financing, infrastructure development, sustainability issues, climate change, among others. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
COP meetings are held every year. So this time, UAE is organizing the event. So what are some of a few expectations from the COP28? Since
Thank you
you've
very
been
much.
engaged in this field for the last several years.
Thank you very much. Very timely questions. This is an area where I've been involved for a long, long time. Climate change, sustainable development. Yes, next week is COP28. It happens every year. I do remember some of the things that recently happened in COP26, COP27, and therefore, based on what I have seen as some of the outcomes, some of the negotiations, some of the outcomes that happened, some of the outcomes that didn't happen, based on that, I would like to say there are about 4 or 5 things that I would like to see it happen, if expectations from my side. One.
What are those?
Yeah. One, the current level of commitment by the government to reduce the greenhouse gas, which is called the NDC, nationally determined commitments, have not really been adequate to meet our global commitment of 1.5 degrees by 21st century. So we are not in the track to meet the requirement. So one of my expectations would be that the countries will enhance their commitments, commit more, especially for those countries who we know had huge impacts, which has emitted quite a bit in the past. So that's one thing I would like to see. This is also the time when they will do a stock taking after in the last 2 years. I think that will give us some data, some additional information, what actually is the status. So again, I'd like to repeat and also urge most of the countries to do more to meet the global requirement, which we all need to do it at this moment. Number 2, in the last COP, one of the breakthrough was on the losses and damage. This was a very contentious issue which between the countries, developed and developing countries, countries which had emitted, countries which were affected, and there was no clear guidelines on that. And COP23, the principle was accepted. What I like to see is actually there is some fund for the economic to pay for the economic losses and the damages, as well as they agree on feasibility studies to see how to make this happen, criteria be developed. I think the expectation of most of the developing countries, including like Nepal, which have been affected because the climate change has gone up, and I hope there will be some clear guidelines on how these countries will benefit out of this economic losses and damage. Number 3, the question of financing, which has been going forever. In 2015, there was a commitment that there will be $100 billion a year, but that hasn't happened. What has happened is very, very little, so that the countries who needs to provide those funds, or who have committed to providing those funds, need to step up. And I think without that money, we will not be able to do more. Frankly, even that.
Is it lack of commitment, or on the part of those countries?
Well, I would say if you have committed something, you need to commit with it. So it's lack of commitment, I would say, at the moment. You are right. And I would urge them that we need more financing like that. Even that $100 billion, frankly, is not enough. It's not enough. But at least it will be a good start to where we can do a lot of things. So you're right. It is those kind of commitment needs to be kept. Number 3, to me, which is equally important, is the adaptation issues. You know, the climate change, the temperatures already increased. Like by now, we say it's already 1.5 degrees centigrade. Some impacts are already happening, even to countries like Nepal. I read one study which said 2% of the GDP is lost every year. And this year's GDP growth of Nepal is 1.8%.
Exactly.
So therefore, these economic losses are huge, and I think meaningful in terms of the countries. The meaning size is very, very huge. So I would say the money for the adaptation, because there'll be impacts. So something that you are doing in one place, you will not be able to do in future. For example, let's say I'm doing agriculture here. If the rainfall pattern is going to change, let's say it's going to be a dry area in a certain, I will not be able to do agriculture. So I will need to learn to adapt. Either I'll need to move to another place to do that, or we need to be compensated, or all. So these kind of adaptation costs are very huge. And the developing countries, including ours, we don't have enough knowledge of what will happen on the various sectors, agriculture, water, energy, food, etc. So those adaptation studies and adaptation costs are very, very important. And the fourth, I would also say, is the capacity building. Many countries still do not have enough capacities even to prepare climate change projects, climate-friendly projects, climate-friendly technologies, and I think those knowledge and capacity building should be very, very important. And I hope in events like COP28, countries will come out and say we'll help to the countries who needs help.
So Prime Minister Pushpa Kanotal, he is attending this year's conference.
Right.
So what are your expectations on the part of Nepal?
I heard the Prime Minister in the television. He said that he's committed to this net zero. Yeah. Maybe I think they made commitment back in the last COP. They will meet by 2045, right? 20 with carbon neutral country, and I think he seems to be committed. But that commitment has to be translated to the action. Otherwise, we will be just like the other countries who made so many commitments and didn't make it. So I think what I like to hear as an Nepalese is our Prime Minister say, here is my commitment, here is how I'm going to go and do it. So second part, I want to hear it more in COP, how he lays it. And related to that, if you could say, to be able for me to do this, I would need this kind of help, this kind of financing help, money help. I like countries to pay me for my losses and damages, whatever those agenda might be. One thing I definitely know, I'm sure you know even better, is we don't have enough resources, money. At a time when our economy is also not very strong, and many countries' economy are not very good, I think additional financing for climate change, softer terms of financing grants preferably is needed. And I hope you'll be able to lay out that picture. Here is my commitment, here is the kind of actions I want to do, here is the kind of resources I would need, and help me.
So those are some of the stumbling blocks.
I would think these are the really right steps that you will have to lay out after making the commitments. And that kind of roadmap, what usually many countries prepare a roadmap. This is what I want to get there. This is my roadmap. I think maybe they've already prepared. Maybe he will mention it in COP28. But I for one want to see what's the roadmap to get to my commitment level, and what kind of help do I need.
As of now, what steps has Nepal taken to address those climate change issues? Even when you talk about glaciers, so there are mountains, snow is melting.
Nepal is uniquely placed. You mentioned the right area, the glaciers. The glaciers are melting, and obviously we are the victims, and that has been proven. So it will, if the temperature rises more, it will melt more, and it will have all kind of likely downstream impacts. And some of the studies I have read shows it's not only to our country, it could go further to another neighboring other countries as well because of that impact. So one of the things that, as someone who has been working in this area for a long time, it will be good for Nepal to pledge to the donors in a COP28, say we like to have a global center for glaciers study, which will actually talk about the impact of the climate change on the glaciers. I think it will be nice to have one of those such international research institution, which could then, not only as a one-time research, it will be a continuous research over the period of time, because climate change is a long-term agenda, right? I think I would personally, that kind of thing would be extremely useful for the global community, and it'll be good for Nepal to have such a center in its own place. And then, the advantage of that, then in designing programs, projects in future, we'll be able to incorporate those and develop some places where the glacier will not affect, or not develop the project where the glacier will affect. I mean, these kind of studies, to the extent I know, are limiting at the moment.
So apart from these, are there any special initiatives that Nepal could, take ahead?
Well, I think Nepal has lots of quick wins. I think, low-hanging fruits. It's something you can immediately do. Let me give an example. We have lots of forests. Now, if we manage some of these forests and protect it, then those could be carbon sinks, depending upon the type of the forest, right? And that carbon sink, people pay for that because you suddenly absorb the carbon, so there's a carbon money you can get for that. It's called RED+. Look at this city, Kathmandu. The transportation sector. We don't produce oil, we buy oil. Suppose if we make a roadmap, say I will go to start with this valley, will all be electric vehicles, electric buses. We immediately get the benefit of reducing the CO2. We don't have to import the oil for that purpose, and you could be paid. We'll be paid for the carbon that we have saved. The carbon credits we'll get it for not emitting those. So this is a win-win type proposal. And frankly, over the years, it will also have the co-benefits that you will not have air pollution, because this city is highly polluted. I just came back from a better air quality program in the Philippines called Cleaner Asia. I'm the chairman of the Cleaner Asia board, and we could clearly see. We saw what happened in Delhi, the air pollution. We saw what happened. Kathmandu is equally bad, if not equally bad. I had seen those kind of air pollution issues, which has links with the climate change, in Beijing many years ago, and Beijing have done a remarkable job of improving. And I think this could be a quick win. And for that kind of projects, you could also get some grants, some money from global climate change. But we need to be able to say, this is what I want to do, the commitment to do it, and then prepare the programs, projects to do it, and start mobilizing the resource. Let me give you an example. In the city of Shenzhen in China, they made a commitment that we're going to replace all our, if I remember right, about 16,000 buses with electric buses. And they also said, and in the following years, they replaced 17,000 taxis.
In 1 year?
I think in a couple of years.
Okay.
But then, now the city is carbon-free from the transport sector. And it's also air pollution free. So I think Kathmandu Valley is ideal for this. A small size, because the EV vehicles, the distance that EV can travel is good enough for the whole day for the city.
Is it possible?
It is possible. It is an ideal project, yeah, if you do it, but it will be very difficult. You said it will be difficult because first we need a commitment. And we need the very stakeholder, the public bus people.
I think it's a political commitment.
Political commitment is required, and then we shall do it. Many stakeholders, some will oppose, some will oppose, but you need to have design in such a way that everybody goes for it. Just like the climate change agenda, if all the countries have to do their part, otherwise we cannot meet the goal. It's everybody's agenda. And go back to 2015, we signed it too. All the countries signed. So it's not a time to complain that I should not do this. It's not an issue. Issue is some should do more, some could do less. Some are more affected, some are less affected, and this is everybody's agenda. I think if we take that viewpoint, and if we can build that kind of understanding in the countries, then people will be committed to do that.
So I think finally, so what are your suggestions categorically to Prime Minister Pushpakumar Dahal?
Well, Prime Minister himself is a very learned person. I think he knows quite a bit, and he has lots of people, I'm sure, around who has been advising him. My whole experience from the international perspective, just be very committed to climate change. And once you're committed, let's say 2025, I want to be carbon neutral. If you say something, show the roadmap how you're going to get there and get it done. You know, in this kind of business, a lot of people say, even the $100 billion commitment hasn't come in. I think if we can show that what our Nepal commits, Nepal commits, Nepal does it, I think that'll send a great message. And that's the message I like to give it to the Prime Minister. Whatever you say something that we will be able to implement, and we will actually implement.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity.